Come on, whoop, there it is, I'm done. Whoop, come on, whoop, there it is. Louder, whoop, give it to me. Whoop, come on, get louder. Whoop, let me hear.
All right, test. Oh, that's loud. Welcome, everybody. My name is Justin Meyer, and today I'm going to talk about DoneJS, which is a new JavaScript framework we built. I'll be going over why we built it and what I think it does really well and why you might want to leave here right now, abandon all your Angular and React apps, and start building DoneJS. If you don't feel that way, please talk to me afterwards. I'm really wanting to learn how to. I really believe in the product. I hopefully will convince you to too. But if not, come talk to me because I want to argue it out. So a few things, because I've given this talk once before, some FAQs that everybody has in the back of their mind the whole time I'm talking. It's a JavaScript framework. It's open source. It's really for the front end. It's back-end agnostic, so you can use it on top of your Python, Ruby on Rails application. It's built on these technologies. It does use Node to do things like server-side rendering and its build system. But like again, you can use it on anything you want. It supports IE8. Works on every major operating system. We've got the pre-version 6 has Node 4 and Node 3 support, which should be production ready in about 2 weeks. And it's not a new framework. We recycle. So this is part of the JavaScript MVC. Anybody heard of JavaScript MVC here? A few people, good. So this is the rebirth of JavaScript MVC. So I work for Bitovi. We're a JavaScript consulting company. And we built some of the biggest, high-profile e-commerce sites there are. Not the biggest, but a few in the top 10. And even using our own technology, we would constantly find how much other stuff had to be done to build like these big, powerful, sophisticated client apps. So I've got a list of a lot of the things here. And it was so much beyond what JavaScript MVC did. And we wanted to make it possible for everybody to do everything, to build that modern web app that can compete in today's JavaScript world. So we added a bunch of things and kind of totally rewrote JavaScript MVC to include things like RealTime, data caching. These are the ones that I'm going to talk about today. It includes all of these. But the ones I'm going to focus on today are how it does RealTime, data caching, progressive loading with CDN deploys, server-side rendering, I think, and show off its hot module swapping. And to do it, I'm going to show building the hello world of real-time applications, a real-time chat application. And before I start building this, I think it's useful to quickly talk about the performance features of DoneJS and how important they are when you're building a single-page application. Because when people traditionally build a single-page application, they build it like this. It's a skeleton HTML page that they just send back to the user. That downloads all the JavaScript, and once the JavaScript is there, it makes AJAX requests to get the data, and then finally draws the view to present that to the user. How many people have built a single-page application like that? Yeah, we've all done it, right? The reasons why we do that is because building apps this way is awesome. Your front-end team doesn't have to really talk to the back-end team. There's a lot of good maintainability advantages. But there's a lot of performance problems. So I'm going to quickly break them down. The big problem with this is, yes, when the user goes to the page, it's going to send back that HTML skeleton. And then if you're lucky, you'll see a loading screen, maybe a little bit more, as the CSS and the JavaScript download for the page. Now, a big problem is that a lot of people aren't doing, or what's wrong at first when they're building an application, is their site is downloading too much JavaScript and CSS too slowly. Right? It's too much JavaScript because in a single-page application, a lot of people will bundle their entire app into one big JavaScript and CSS file. and then it's too slow because they're not using a CDN to distribute their files to make downloading more local and therefore faster. And then once JavaScript and CSS have loaded, well, now you need to get the data for your page. So you still might see spinners while the page is loading its data, and then finally the data comes back and you render the page. Now, what we want, and hopefully everybody here wants, is a much faster user experience where the user sees right away what they want to look at, and then shortly after the page becomes interactive. And this is how DoneJS works. It works by when the user goes to the page, it packages up, it totally server-side renders the single page application, sends that back, but also is able to identify what data that page is loading and will package that up with the page response. So that when JavaScript and CSS download fast and just the right amount, when JavaScript becomes alive, it'll say, okay, I'm going to start making my AJAX request, but we'll trap that and use the data that was sent back with the initial page response. So the result of this is a much, much better user experience. And I think everybody's talked forever about how performance is one of those things that just drives, makes users very happy. So that was a big part of the goal for DoneJS. And with that, I'm going to show how to actually build that real-time application. So the app is actually 2 pages. It's a home page that has just this little tabs widget and a link to the chat page. And the chat page just lists messages, allows people to create it, and it works real time. So this is going to show off a subset of DoneJS's features, and I think it's going to show off a lot, like some of the most important and unique features, which are the ones underlined up here. The steps to build the application: we're going to set up the app. We're going just kind of set up a new DoneJS application. I'm going to add Bootstrap and just show off that hot module swapping is working and it's server-side rendered. I'm going to add routing that routes between 2 different pages, and then I'll finish the actual messages and home page, add real time to the messages page, and then I'll build and deploy it to a CDN, and then launch it. So, step 1, setting up a DoneJS application. Hopefully, you all can read that. But it's really easy. It's the standard way of installing every CLI ever, which is npm install DoneJS. Once you do that, I'm going to create a project once my video runs. Interesting. There it goes. Okay, so I'm going to create a folder, and then I'm just going to run. I actually can't see the video here, but I can up there. I'm going to run DoneJS init. And this is just the standard Yaumin generator that will ask me a few questions about my project, install all of its dependencies. So here I'm going to call it DoneJS chat. Say I want all my main source files in that source folder, and everything else is just the kind of standard fare. And it generated this file structure. So and installed the dependencies. Which takes a while. There's a lot of dependencies. And this is actually like double time. So I don't have a very fast internet connection. All right. So once all the dependencies are installed, it creates a development server that hosts the static files, sets up server-side rendering, does the hot module swapping, pretty much everything you want in an application. It's bundled. So I'm setting it up. I'm starting the development server, and I'm going to go to, and it just sets up a very basic hello world. So with the hello world, I'm going to add Bootstrap, and then I'll show that hot module swapping and server-side rendering are working. So to add Bootstrap to this page is actually very simple. So DoneJS comes with Steel.js, which is kind of like Webpack, if you've used that, a dependency management solution. You can load modules in any format from NPM. Oh, and also, sorry, one thing I forgot to mention, our index.stash here, this is the template that the page is rendered with. So the server-side rendering renders this, but it's also sent to the client. But here, I'll just show off live reload working, because I forgot I'm doing that first. So this is actually hot module swapping, but you can see me just changing it, updates the page, without having to refresh or anything. And now I'm going to install Bootstrap. And you'll notice those can imports. That will become important in a second. Oh, I think I hit the button. Oh, no. All right. So, like I said, Steel can, and DoneJS, using Steel, can load pretty much anything from anywhere, including from NPM. So I just have to install Bootstrap into my DoneJS project and save it to its package.json. And then I can use those can imports, which are kind of like HTML imports, but can import modules, like any JavaScript or CSS, any kind of module. So I'm just going to add a can import for Bootstrap and Bootstrap's less file. And then I'm going to change the HTML at the right here to actually use Bootstrap to say hello world. And when I save this, you'll see the page automatically update to a hello world that uses Bootstrap's fonts. And yeah, yay, live reload. So once I've done that, now I'm going to just show off server-side rendering. Okay, so I'm just going to open up the DevTools, show the page response, and just kind of prove that this template is actually being server-side rendered. It's being sent back. So if we scroll to the bottom, now you can see that hello world. Now I could talk for hours about how good our server-side rendering solution is. I highly encourage people to look it up on DoneJS.com, but it solves like every conceivable problem of, you know, if you're loading styles, it knows to move those up at the top so there's no flash of unstyled content. It knows how to wait for all your AJAX requests to finish before rendering the entire page. If there's any set timeouts, we can track those, and it's pretty nifty solution, if I say so myself, and I am biased. Okay, so next step, I'm going to add routing. So in the DoneJS application, different pages are represented by custom elements. So I'm going to have a chat home custom element that represents the home page, and a chat messages custom element that represents the messages page. And I'm going to route between these two. So the first one I'm going to build is the home. I need to build a home custom element. And to do this with DoneJS, there's two ways of creating custom elements. Custom elements are built as components, but there's two ways of building components. One is for very lightweight components, which are done in these component files that look very much like a web component file. So that's the first one I'm going to create. I'm going to create our home page as a single home component module. And I just ran the generator to do that. And we can see what it made here. So this is kind of a self-contained description of a custom element. It has, you know, the name, the tag name. It has styles for this custom element. It has a template that gets rendered inside this custom element. It has a view model that controls the behavior of this custom element. And this doesn't need a view model, so I'm going to get rid of it. All it really needs to do is show an image that says DoneJS chat, and then a link from this page to the chat messages page. So here I'm just creating that link, or the image. And now I'm going to create the link. So routing works a little different in DoneJS versus other frameworks. It's two-way routing rules. So what you say is, I want a URL that will set the page property of the application's view model to chat. So this will figure out the best routing rule for setting that state of the application, and we'll actually write a /chat in this case. So that's how you create it's all state-based. You set what the state you want, and it will figure out what the URL needs to look like. And I'm just going to add some styles. Just so things look right. So this is our home page. And now I'm going to create the chat messages page. Or I'm going to create a dummy one so we can switch back and forth between two pages. So this, I'm going to add a component where every single, like its styles, its template, everything is split out into its own file. That's how we generally develop stuff. We call it the modlet folder structure, file structure, how we organize things. So we have a folder with everything inside of it. So this generated the tests, documentation, everything, starter everything for what a module should be. So in this case, I'm just going to change the template for my custom element to have a link back to the home page. Eventually, I'm going to come and make it list all the messages. So here, I just want the state, when someone clicks on this link, of the applications view model to be page home. And we're going to use this in a second to switch between these two different custom elements. Now, one final thing I want to do is make a pretty routing rule that I talked about. So this is how I create those pretty routing rules that map a certain state to a certain URL. So I want to say if the URL ever looks like /word, that's the page. And I want a default page value of home. So with that, when I want to check the application's view model's page state, that page property, and if it's, I think I'm going to do if it's chat. So if the page property is chat, what I want to do is progressively load the chat module. So I'm going to use a can import. And this is, to me, the coolest stuff that DoneJS does, or nobody else does this. I can say I want to progressively import that chat messages module, and inside that custom element, it's rendered with the promise of that module loading. So I can check while that module is being progressively loaded, I want to write to the user, loading. And then once it's resolved, once we actually have that module in the page, I want to write, I can actually use the chat custom element, and I can put it in the page. So I'll close the tag, and I'm going to do something I'm just going to assume if the page for this app isn't chat, it's going to be the home page. And I'm just going to kind of copy and paste this code. One really cool thing about DoneJS is that its build system actually picks up on these and will build individual modules for every single different page. Because it can actually see these and identify, oh, I need to build a separate bundle for messages and a separate bundle for everything home component loads. So with that, now I can go back and forth between these two pages. And it's progressive loading, just what's needed when it's needed. So now I'm going to finish the messages page so we can actually create messages. So this is what we want, to be able to type a message and actually get it put in the page. Oh, sorry. Actually, I'm going to have to replay that, sorry. I forgot the video. It's not letting me, unfortunately, control the video in here I'm not sure why. Maybe because it's screen sharing. So the way to do this is you create a model with what we call supermodel, because DoneJS's models handle real-time automatically. They have a fall-through cache that hits local storage, which is a really cool technique if you've never used it. But I'm not going to have time to go into it today. Anyways, I'm going to generate a message supermodel, and I'm going to say I have a RESTful endpoint I want it to connect to. And I'm going to give it the unique ID of the data type, and I'll generate some tests and a fixture so we can simulate without a service if we didn't have one, but we do have one. And it generates a file like this. CanJS kind of split its model logic into the connection part and actually the type definition. So that's why there's a type definition on top and a connection below where we connect that data type to a URL. And finally, you see this tag, this custom tag message model. That's actually going to make a custom element called message model that we can use to retrieve data. So I'm going to actually use that custom element to get a list of all messages on the server. First, to do that, I actually need to import that module into my template, again with can import. So I'll use that message model custom element that's using our supermodel behind the scenes to get a list of all data. And that class is there just for Bootstrap, to make sure everything looks nice for Bootstrap. And the content of this element is rendered with a promise that represents the data that's being resolved. And I could do that is pending, is resolved, is rejected, but I'm not. Instead, I'm just, once there is a value that's resolved, I'm going to go through every item, and I'm just going to list each message. So each message has a name and a body. So I'm just listing each name and body. And then if there are no messages, I'm just going to do an else case and say there are no messages. So with this, that's everything we needed to actually be able to list messages from the server, which is cool. No JavaScript, just HTML that we had to write. So the next thing is I want to make the form actually able to create messages. So I'm going to create a form with two inputs, one for the name, one for the body, and one for a submit button. And I'm just going to add all the Bootstrap stuff around it. So just make sure Bootstrap lines up everything nicely. And I'm going to two-way bind my inputs value to my view model, which we'll see in a second. The view model of this template, its name property. So this is what two-way bindings look like in DoneJS. And if you hate two-way bindings because you're a big fan of React, you can not do it with two-way bindings. You can do the exact same kind of architectural stuff if you want to waste your time. So here's the two-way binding for the input binding to the body. And here's a submit button. And the final thing I need is that when we actually submit the form, I need to call a method on my view model. So I'm going to call this is how you listen to events. On submit, we want to call send with the event so that we can prevent default it. So this is what my view model looks like. And my component, which kind of connects the view model to the template. And I'm just going to create that send method. And this is, I'm writing in ES6. So the first thing I'm going to do is prevent default, because I don't want my form submitted. And then I'm going to import my supermodel, my messages model. So that I can use that to actually create data and persist it to the RESTful service. So here, I'll just create a new message, and I'll create the message with a name and body that come from the view model. So to read things from the view model, use this .action. And then I'll save this to the server. And then when the server has successfully responded, I'll just update the body, remove the text of the body so the user can enter another message right away. And with that, you can create messages. So a really good observer would be very surprised by what just happened right there. Somehow, with no code, that new message got put into the list of messages. How? I didn't write any code that did that. Well, it's with set logic, and I might have time to explain it. I don't think I will, actually. So I'm going to show how to do real-time real quick, which is really easy. So to do real-time, we use set logic to kind of automatically manage the lists that you've loaded and know how to add things and remove them. But it's really easy to integrate with. I'm going to install Steel Socket.io, but it's really just Socket.io with a wrapper that makes it not run when you're doing server-side rendering. You can use the normal Socket.io. You just have to make sure you have ifs to make sure don't do this when you're running all this code on the server. But if you don't want to do that, you can just use Steel Socket.io, and all you have to do is, especially if whoever's here on the last talk, you know that there can be a lot of different ways to update a client. The cool thing about DoneJS is it doesn't matter what mechanism you're using to actually update the client, Socket.io, anything. As long as you can call the message connection and tell it when something is updated, deleted, or created, we will update all the lists for you automatically. So that's what I'm doing right here. I've created my socket connection. I'm listening on when its messages are created, and I'm just calling message connection create instance with raw data. And the system handles everything else. So when messages are created, I'm going to create. When messages are updated, I'm going to update. And when messages are removed, I'm going to call destroy instance. And I can open up 2 browser windows and have them chat. I'm just going to skip this. Well, it'll show it, but I have so much to talk about. I'm typing too slow. There, it works, cool. So this works with real-time behavior. I don't have time to really go into it, but the short answer is essentially we store only when necessary. We know what parameters were used to request data, and we can look at when new data comes in or is destroyed, and we can see which lists it belongs to based on the parameters used to retrieve those lists. It's a pretty, I think, innovative way of getting real time for free. Don't have time to really show how it works right now. So next, I'm going to finish the homepage, and I'm actually going to skip that too because of time, which I was just going to add a chat widget to, but not important. Now I'm going to show how to build this. So when DoneJS apps, okay, I'm actually going to skip the build. Just DoneJS is able to do this thing where it figures out your dependencies or which pages are loading, like I already talked about, and build highly optimized bundles for each page. Now, some people might be thinking like Webpack already does this. It doesn't do what this does. We're able to balance caching versus dependency or number of scripts that have to load with this cool waste function. But another talk for another day. Let's say we got our build to work, which is one step, just DoneJS build, you want to push that to a CDN. DoneJS makes this really easy. I'm going to use Firebase as an example. If you sign up for Firebase, you can create a new Firebase account and then a container for your application. So this is solving your code, downloading your code. You want to download your code faster. You want your users to download code from a CDN. This is how easy it is with DoneJS. Create a new container on Firebase. And then all you have to do is specify the DoneJS, you have to fill out the DoneJS deploy configuration. So this is what the configuration for Firebase looks like. It's kind of not something you could come up with on your own, but they're documented. So I just give the name of my app. And then there's one other piece of configuration you have to change, which is when you're doing server-side rendering, you need to make sure that all the JavaScript, the script tags, instead of pointing like from localhost or whatever the current server is, they need to point at Heroku, so you change the base URL for when you're in that one mode. So this is one nice feature of DoneJS is how it helps manage you through like development to production life cycles. And with that, you just run your build, and this is that high performance build where it kind of figures out every page and tries to bundle things perfectly, so you're just downloading what you need, but not a million scripts. And I ran the DoneJS deploy, and that just pushed everything to Firebase. I can start my DoneJS server in development, in production, and reload my page, and now we get 9 combined CSS, image, and script requests, and you can see they're all loading from Firebase. Cool. Okay, so at this point, we have that very fast app that's server-side rendered, has hot module swapping, all the cool stuff, something to be very proud of. But there's 2 other things DoneJS does. It can build to iOS and Android, and build to desktop. So I'm going to show that off real quick, and then I'm done. So to build to iOS, to take this application and build it to iOS, I'm going to install the iOS simulator so you guys can actually see it work. And this is using Cordova. And then I'm going to run npm add DoneJS add Cordova. So this will just add Cordova, but it'll also rewrite the build script, so it knows how to bundle up all those JavaScript files and put them in a Cordova application. And I'll ask you some questions that Cordova wants. So we want to build for iOS because I'm on a Mac. You can build to any of the other platforms, provided you have the right computer. And then you just run DoneJS build, and it changed the build script to, so if you write DoneJS build Cordova, it will build your whatever Cordova you configured to build. So it's going to run the build again, and then ship that off to Cordova, and actually launch the simulator. So you can see it running, cool. I'm going to skip over showing the 2 things chatting, because now I just want to show desktop. And, oh, I did it too fast. Okay, there we go. Desktop is even easier. I'm using NWJS to build a desktop app. So I'm going to add DoneJS add NW. This will rewrite the build script again, install some of NW's dependencies. again, all of this stuff works on Linux, Mac, and Windows. A lot of testing there. So the only thing you have to be wary of with NW is not all of their versions support every version of Mac and like to be able to actually build a Mac app. So that's why I'm putting 0, 1, 2, 3. Because their latest version doesn't actually support building to Mac, at least not at the time where I made this video, which is like 2 weeks ago. So I wrote the platforms I want to support and the height of our application, and now having done that, I just run DoneJS build NW, and then NW is really cool that it only the first time you run it, it downloads a lot of its dependencies, which is really nice. So if you're not having to, if not everybody in your team who's not built, if they're not building NW app, they don't have to like install it when they're just trying to work on the web part. So then I'm just gonna, it made those builds, those executables. I'm gonna open them, and I get my desktop app. And then I can pull up the web app and the iOS app, and then I can have them all chatting together. One big desktop says one big happy family. So we have so part of the reason why we built, like I said, built DoneJS is like I wanted an application, like I wanted a framework where it could take you through everything that you needed to do. So we have a more comprehensive guide that actually walks through setting up tests, documentation, continuous integration, continuous deploys. Really good to look at. For more information, there's so much in DoneJS that I could spend hours on it. But it's all actually pretty well documented, the features and why they're important. You can go to the website. I'm doing like free trainings all across the US. That's it. Thank you. Oh.